All right, good morning, jurors. I hope you all had a good evening. So, we're back on the record. We have our jurors, counsel, and parties present. And I think we're ready for the state to call another witness. So, I'm not sure. Mr. Kodiaga?
The state calls Andrew Gladfelter.
All right. Good morning, sir. You want to just go over to the far left, if you would, and go ahead and have a seat. And first, I'm going to ask you to turn on your microphone. There's a little button at the bottom of it. Yep, little red lights on it. You can adjust that however you'd like. Yep. Test. Yep, it's working. So, sir, I'm going to go ahead and swear you in. If you please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm, sir, that the testimony you'll be giving in these proceedings will be the truth?
I do.
All right. And for the record, can you please provide me with your first and last name and spell them both?
My name is Andrew Gladfelter. My first name is spelled A-N-D-R-E-W. Last name is spelled G-L-A-D-F-E-L-T-E-R.
All right. Thank you, sir. Mr. Kodiaga?
Thank you, Judge. Sir, you've introduced yourself. Can you tell the jury what you do for a living?
I am employed as a criminalist with the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation, Criminalistics Laboratory.
And can you unpack that? Just explain what a criminalist is and what your employment and experience to be in this position.
As a criminalist at the Iowa DCI Crime Lab, you analyze evidence brought to you by law enforcement, and you will perform your analysis and generate reports on your findings of those analyses. As part of being a criminalist at the laboratory, you would usually have a 4-year degree in a specific scientific field like chemistry, physics, and or biology. With that in mind, you have that 4-year degree and other training that might be acceptable for different positions within that laboratory. I'm currently employed within the firearm and tool mark examination section. And with that, I have a 4-year degree in chemistry chemistry and forensic science from Simpson College of Indianola, Iowa.
How long have you been employed by the DCI Crime Lab?
Just a little bit under 15 years. It'll be 15 years in September.
Okay. And so during the course, you said you now work in the firearms department. Have you worked in different departments within the crime lab?
Yes, I have. I first started out in the laboratory as an evidence technician. Prior to that, I was an intern in toxicology, but that wasn't a paid position. But I was in the evidence room as an evidence technician. From there, I became a criminalist in the drug section. And then after that, I was now in firearms and tool marks since October of 2022.
As part of your job before, you talked about evidence technician. Does that involve also crime scene investigation?
Yes, as part of being a criminalist at the laboratory, you can volunteer to be part of the crime scene response teams there.
Can you tell the jury what that means?
As part of being in the crime scene response team, you're allotted certain weeks in the year where you're on call 24 hours a day to respond to any investigations that are required with your expertise in crime scene investigation. The part of being in the crime scene teams is that you'll receive training on the documentation and preservation of evidence at scenes. And from there, as part of your normal duties, you'll have your expertise in the laboratory, but then you'll also be part of the crime scene team on a rotation.
Does that involve forensic evidence collection?
Yes, it does.
And part of that involves chain of custody, collecting the evidence, taking it back to the lab?
Correct.
Were you involved sometimes in June 18th of 2021 in the case that brings us to this court today?
Yes, I was.
What was the nature of your involvement?
It was requested by the SAC at the time to respond to a death investigation there and to provide crime scene investigation.
So basically what you've talked about was your involvement then documenting, collecting, and preserving the evidence for further testing and for further testimony as you are in court here today?
Yes.
So you've described how you became involved Did you have a brief briefing of what you will be doing as you go there and what the nature of the case looked like?
Yes, so on an initial call out from the SAC, we were asked to head to the Tama County Sheriff's Department for initial briefing on the details of the case.
Did you then proceed to the property in question where you're going to do your investigations at?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember the address that you went to?
The address we were told was 1846 or 1846 K Avenue, Traer, Iowa.
Can you describe the property and your initial observations as you got to the property?
The property itself consisted of a main residence with an attached garage, as well as various outbuildings there too. A garden shed near a garden. There was a play area for children. There was also a shed that contained a lot of recreational items, as well as two other garages, a gray garage and a red garage that contained vehicles or recreational vehicles.
When you go to a property to do an examination, are there certain standards or procedures that you use or that you apply in working a crime scene?
Yes, as part of my training, there is a very specific process that there is a process in which we will follow to document and then to preserve that evidence and collect that evidence, preserve that evidence, and then follow the chain of custodies with those. Those are part of our training as well as listed within our SOPs within the laboratory.
What are some of the methods or training that you use?
Say that again, please.
What are some of the methods or training process that you use?
Some of the methods that we use, are you asking in documenting? Or?
Yes.
Okay. With crime scene documentation, we're going to be using photography. We'll even take video. We will also then even make sketches of those scenes as well. We also use a 3D measuring device called a Faro scanner, which will do a 3D virtual scan of that scene and also collect measurements of that scene that we can use later on.
Did you employ some of those methods in this particular case?
Yes, those methods that I mentioned were used in this case.
Okay. Can you explain to the jury more briefly what a Faro is?
Faro is just a metrology device or a measuring device that will bounce lasers around a room and measure the distances that those lasers have reflected off of surfaces. And with the technology and the software they have, they're able to calculate those distances, and then it provides a 3D virtual representation of that scene.
You talked about taking pictures to document the scene. Did you do that in this particular case?
Yes.
And have you been able to review those pictures that you took before your testimony today?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, at this point, with the stipulation of the parties, the state will admit what's been marked as State Exhibit 118 to 155, then 156A, 157, 158A, 159 through 167, 168A, 169 through 193, and 302.
Just make sure I got those numbers correct. 118 through 155, 156A, 157, 158A, 159 through 167, 168A, 169 through 193, and 302.
That is correct.
And is there any objection by the defendant?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Then I'm not going to repeat them all again, but all the exhibits that I just mentioned are now admitted. And are you looking to publish these?
That is correct. And may I approach to...
You may, and you don't need to ask again with this witness.
It might help you to use those, that's fine, but copy on the screen in front of you.
Yeah, and you can tilt that screen. That helps. You should be able to tilt that screen. So there you go.
Beginning with 118, can you tell us what we see on that exhibit?
Yes, this is a photograph of the east side of the main residence at 1846 K Avenue.
So what you documented, what time did you arrive at this residence?
At the residence, a little past noon. I can't remember the exact time right off the top of my head.
Fair enough to say that at that point, your department had been called in, and so the scene had been secured for your department to come and do the investigation?
Yes.
So there was no one at the residence?
There was law enforcement personnel on the property, but not inside of the residence.
Were there any children or any other person who was living at that residence?
At that time, there was only law enforcement personnel on scene.
Okay. You talked about being kind of given information or told a little bit of what to expect when you get to the residence. Is that what happens as standard practice?
Yes, those were in the initial details at the briefing at Tama County Sheriff's Department.
Okay. Do you rely on what you're given 100%?
No, not as a scientist, and when I'm given those details, I'm naturally want to be skeptical of them. I'm going to be walking into scene as if none of those details really matter, but it does give us an idea of what could be seen as evidence at that scene. Otherwise, I'm looking to see what's consistent with details, what's inconsistent with details, and just looking to find any evidence that would help answer questions arising in this matter.
Okay. Go to state 119. What do we see on 119?
This is a door that is the entrance to the attached garage on the main residence. This is besides the garage door itself, this is the other way to access that garage.
What of significance did you notice about this door?
At the time, it was shut, and also that it has a key lock as well as a keypad lock for a code too.
And will you describe that as an electronic keypad?
Yes.
What do we see on state 120?
Again, this is another view of the east side of the residence, showing the entrance into the kitchen, or the what I term the mudroom area, the initial entryway, as well as another exterior door to the south living room and the dining area or porch area on the east side of that residence.
If you can you describe to the jury, we see at least outlines of 3 doors. Can you tell the jury what those 3 doors you determine them to be?
Yes. Is it all right if I use a laser pointer? I have one on me to be able to point up there. Is that okay?
That's fine if it works.
So the question was about the entrances into that residence?
Yes.
Okay. So what was previously seen over here was the garage door entrance here. This is the only way to get into the garage other than that garage door being open. This right here is one of the other entryways into the residence itself. This would give access to the residence through the southern living room area, and this would give access to the mudroom, which is right next to that kitchen, and the basement access as well. And these are the two that work into the residence there, and this door would be the one that only goes into that attached garage.
Okay, and so from your testimony, to get into the house, into this residence, you have to use one of those 2 doors, not the garage door, correct?
Correct. The attached garage does not have access into the main residence.
What do we see on 121? Is that just more isolating the front living room door?
Yes, it's just a closer view of the living room door, as well as the porch that is there, the landing, and the steps there to that dining area.
When you came, was that landing, was that door, that landing gate open?
Yes, when we were there on scene, that gate was open.
What do we see on 122?
Another view of that door on the south living room door, just from the east side of the residence there.
Now, can you describe for the jury 121 and 122? Are those steps fairly short steps, like pretty small and confined area?
I would say for somebody like my size, and like if I have size 10 and a half, 11 feet, that yes, they're smaller steps than I would usually step on, but I can't give you an exact representation of that. Other than that, yes, it is a smaller area that has been fenced in with those gates there.
What do we see on this exhibit?
This would be the entrance to the mudroom, which then gives access to the kitchen on the east side of the residence.
What do we see on State Exhibit 124?
That is the same entry with the door open that I just previously mentioned.
Okay. So that's now with the door open.
That is with the door open now.
And when you came, was this door open or closed?
When I was there processing the scene with my partner, that door was closed.
What do you see in 125?
That would be the latches on the door frame to that same previously mentioned door, the door that gives access to the mudroom and kitchen area.
Why did you take this picture?
At the time, when I'm processing a scene, I'm keeping in mind the details of the case, but I'm also being skeptical of those very details. I'm looking to see if this was a completely unknown subject that came to the residence, what would be the reasons why? And if they had to get access to this place, there would be possibly signs of forced entry is one of my thought processes when looking at this scene. This is just a photograph of the latches that I had observed, and there appeared to be no signs of forced entry or tool marks on them that would suggest somebody's trying to break into those door.
Just a close-up of that?
Yes, just a close-up of the same latches.
That's 126?
Let me double check here. Yes, that would be State's Exhibit 126.
What does the jury see in Exhibit 127?
That is a view of the kitchen from the southeast corner, just inside of that door that we have just previously looked at.
Anything moved in the kitchen that was alarming or interesting to you, or it seemed just a normal kitchen at a farmhouse?
Yes, it appears to be just a normal kitchen with items from the family, food items, dishes, cookware, whatever is in a normal kitchen. There's some cash that I noticed that was left on the countertop here as well, and also a tablet on the kitchen table there that was left there. Those things have appeared to have just been there when I was at the scene, and nothing has. It's just a photograph of where they are as it is at this point.
What do we see on 128?
This would be a view from the, pardon me while I get my directions straight and just think through here, but the northwest corner of the kitchen, looking towards the south to the entrance to the central foyer or sewing room area as we called it. And by we, I mean my partner and I as we defined it at the time.
So when you did this, you were with someone else?
Yes.
What was that person's name?
It is evidence technician Melissa Osmek.
What do we see on State Exhibit 129?
So that is a view of the central hall or the sewing room area that has access to the upstairs as well as to the bathroom and some other bedrooms. This is looking towards the south wall of that area.
I'm going to show you what's been admitted already as 313, State Exhibit 313, which will be the floor plan of this building. With that, if you can also help that, if that can help with your testimony to explain.
Okay.
Are you able to see that?
Yes, I am.
So when you're talking about 129, if you look at the floor plan, can you just use your pointer to show the jury what you're talking about, or where that picture we're seeing?
Yes, so if this is the hallway or the central area, I am taking the picture from here facing this direction.
And so there's a bedroom that you will have to pass to get to where you're taking that picture, correct?
The bathroom is actually, if I go to the photo, it would be up here. That's the access to the bathroom, which would be there on the diagram.
Okay. What do we see on State Exhibit 130?
So this is another view of that hallway area as defined on that diagram. It's looking at the bathroom access. So if I'm pointing here, I would be photographing from this corner facing generally this direction, showing the bathroom entrance as well as the previous entrance that I took the photo at.
Do we see some staircase going up?
Yes.
Okay. And fair enough to say the staircase leads to at least a bedroom upstairs.
Yes, there are 2 bedrooms upstairs.
What do we have on State Exhibit 131?
Again, this is another view of that central hallway area, and it would be from approximately this area facing towards the access to these 2 bedrooms here.
Skip to 132. Is that just a picture of the stairway going up?
Yes, that's just a picture looking up the stairway from that hallway area.
What about 133?
This is a photograph from just outside the entrance to the master bedroom, which would be bedroom 1 here.
Uh, 134?
134 is just inside of that master bedroom, just inside the door, facing towards the west end of that and looking at the contents of that bed.
What about State Exhibit 135?
So that's another photograph inside of the master bedroom, and that is taken from the southeast corner of that bedroom, looking towards this area over here.
Do you know what is on the bed?
Yes, so there's an open safe on the bed, as well as some other electronic items.
And when you talk of electronic items, you're talking about iPads or Kindles?
Yes, soft tablets of some sort.
Fair to say 136 is just another view from the bedroom with what you've testified to?
Yes, and this has got another view of that safe in the corner, in the bottom right corner of that photo, as well as it's facing towards the south end of that master bedroom.
What do we see on States 137?
This is a photograph of the living room access to the south living room from essentially the master bedroom entrance right here.
So to access this living room, you'll have to pass directly in front of the master bedroom.
If you're coming from the kitchen and hallway area, yes, you would have to get access to the living room. You would pass the bedrooms and the bathrooms in the hallway area.
What do we see on 138?
This is just another view of the access to the living room, just facing towards the south, showing some of the furniture items at the west end of that living room.
For about 139.
This is a photograph from approximately the southwest corner of the living room, facing towards this area here on the living room, which would be the northeastern direction of the living room.
You talked about a Faro that you used. When you use that Faro, are you able to take pictures and make a diagram out of it?
Of the Of the data from the Pharaoh?
Yes.
Yes, there's different software that's able to produce different representations of that scene using that equipment.
Were you able to do that in this particular case?
Yes, a coworker of mine was able to generate an aerial view of this crime scene.
Okay. And did you, was that one produced to help your testimony in this particular case?
I'm sorry, say that first part again?
Do we have one that you got to help with your testimony in this particular case?
Yes.
By agreement of the parties, the state will move to admit what's been marked as State Exhibit 305.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right. State's Exhibit 305 is admitted.
I will ask you copy.
You may.
Mr. Gladfelter, I know it's a little dark in this courtroom. Are you able to see the Pharaoh from where you are?
Yes, I can.
Is that more of a higher view of, can you describe what we are seeing in the Pharaoh?
Yes, what you're seeing is what we call more of an orthogonal view, which is like perpendicular to the aerial view of that crime scene. This has been generated by one of my coworkers to be able to view everything kind of in relation as it was at that scene.
Now, when you got there, you find Brian Cooper on the floor.
Yes, as seen on that diagram and as well as the photographs, that's the way he was found. The way that we had viewed him at the time that we were there.
Was there a briefing that you understood that he had been moved to the floor?
Yes, that was a detail that was mentioned to us, was that he had been moved from the recliner that is in the living room area.
So by the time you arrive at around 12 o'clock or later in the day, he's still in the house but just been moved from the recliner. You had an understanding that he was found initially on the recliner, correct?
Yes, that was what was told to me at the initial briefing on the details of the case, is that he was found in the recliner and that they had since moved him off the recliner. And when I arrived on scene, that's exactly as they had mentioned.
With the Pharaoh, can you just explain to the jury and just briefly walk us through what they will be able to see with it as they look at it?
As who looked?
As the jury looks at the Pharaoh,
Okay.
like in terms of the rooms or what it tells us, what you're seeing from that exhibit.
Yes, what you're seeing is this would be the living room area. That would be same as over here. And then also the front porch / dining area, which would be correlate to this area here. And then this area would be that central hallway, which has access to that living room area here. And on this will also have the placards and some of the scales that were used in the scene to produce the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh images, to be specific.
And Judge, if I may have the light a little bit on for...
Karen, turn up the light just a little bit, please.
Now, there seems to be some, what I can describe as artifacts on that Pharaoh. Can you just explain to the jury what they are so that they can have an understanding of what they are seeing?
Sure. So it looks like when you view this aerial view of the scene, there seems to be just like missing pieces and or fragments of different images. When you're using this 3D scanning software, you have a laser that's bouncing off of various surfaces that were within its view. From there, what can happen is there can be interference of that laser. So it's creating almost like a shadow effect where if you shine a flashlight on somebody, you can see their shadow behind them. Those fragments and those missing pieces are usually where the laser hasn't been able to reach. With that in mind, so a good example would be this area here. There's actually a roof over the top of this, but that has been since removed to be able to see down to the porch area, but then there's other landscaping here that might have not been hit by that laser, so it doesn't appear there. That's just an example of kind of what you are seeing here on this aerial view.
When you start your scene examination, did you have a specific place where you started, or did you move from outside to inside? Can you explain that to the jury?
Specifically with this scene, I worked with the outbuildings first and then worked inwards to the main residence.
Okay. And why was that?
I was operating under the basis of knowing the details of the case as well as looking to see what could be inconsistent or consistent with the details that were given to us. So if there has been some unknown person upon the property, my thought process is, well, why else would they be on the property? There's a possibility that they might be looking for something to steal, to go through the property itself. So there's a possibility that maybe they've looked at the outbuildings of some sort and looked at the items that are there. If there was something like that, I would expect to see certain signs supporting that type of evidence. But from there, I worked outwards at those outbuildings and then towards the main residence itself.
Okay. I will get back to the outside, but let's start from the inside.
Okay.
On the inside, when you're looking at what I gave you a State Exhibit 139, and you find Ryan Cooper, do you start an examination of that room to see what's in that room and what the evidence in that room tells you?
What I am doing is that I'm going to be documenting first, foremost, getting my overall photographs of it, as well as getting an idea of what possible items of evidence could be there too. So I'm doing that kind of in tangent with documenting that scene as well.
Okay. So let's talk about the living room examination. What did you do and what did you observe?
First off, I took overall photographs of that area without any type of markers or placards in that scene. Just took photographs of the living room as it is. From there, I will be able to mark what I believe were possible items of evidence using the placards or sticky scales that we have that have little scales on them to designate areas of importance that I believe were important to the details or the investigation of this scene.
Judge, may we have the TV back?
You may. Are we done with this one then too? For right now?
No, I think we can just have it up. I think we'll have it up.
Okay.
Showing you what's been admitted as State Exhibit 140. Can you tell us what your observations with 140 are?
Say that last part again.
Can you tell us what your observations with 140 are?
Yes, so this is a photograph from the living room from the south side or the southeast corner of the living room, approximately in this area here. From there, it's just a photograph showing the end table as well as the recliner that is there. There's also a wallet and also a tablet that is on this end table here, as well as some medical equipment and tags used for the transport of the decedent here.
So the medical equipment would have come after he was found in that position, correct?
In the recliner position or the
yes,
on the
ground? In the recliner.
Yes, so this was, for what we were told in the details, is that he had been moved from the recliner, that there had been services there to start dealing with the transport of his body. And so there are some items that they were going to use for that purpose.
What do we see on 141?
It is a photograph of the western side of that south living room from approximately that same position from the previous photo here, just looking at the TV as well as the furniture, and it has a little bit of the access into that main hallway there up on the right side of that photograph.
Again, as you look at that, are you making observations of signs of struggle, of signs of a break-in, or anything to that extent?
Yes, I'm overall taking photographs of that stuff, or of those items that you have listed, but I'm looking to also see, is the furniture in place? Has there been anything like that, like council has mentioned, where there could be signs of a struggle or anything where somebody's breaking in? Windows, are they locked or closed? I'm making all those observations in the process of investigating that scene.
Do you see any of that?
Not in this living room.
State Exhibit 142?
Just another photograph from the same position, looking more towards the northwest corner of that living room, as well as the couch, the end table, and the hallway access.
So there was a couch next to a recliner.
Say the couch again?
The couch was next to a recliner.
Yes, the couch was near to the recliner. Yes.
On Exhibit 143, we start seeing what you call placards.
These are placards marking the red stain at placard 2 there, as well as placard 3 marking some footprints in blood.
But there's observations that you are able to make.
Yes, I observed those on the initial photography of this area. These were placed after I had taken my overall photographs.
Okay. And you determined those were of interest to you because they documented either what you will refer to as a footwear impression or bloodstains.
I'm sorry, say that again.
You determined that they were of interest to you. Why?
It just showed that there had been somebody in the living room that had access to the decedent and the apparent blood that was found in that area, and had walked what appears to be towards that hallway access.
What do we see on State Exhibit 144?
This is just another photograph of the south living room from the southeast corner, looking at the recliner, the end table, as well as the decedent and some of the blood that was found near the recliner.
What is of interest to you when you looked at that?
Some of the things that I've mentioned previously is that the end table and the recliner is showing the position of the recliner right now, as well as where the blood stain is in relation to that recliner, and also just documenting the overall scene itself.
Were you able to document or observe any injuries on Ryan Cooper?
Yes, there was 2 that I noted on the left side of his face.
What do we see on 145?
That's just a view of the same recliner that was seen in the previous photograph, just looking straight on towards the backrest with the blood stain that is on the backrest there.
Okay. And can you describe what you see, the blood stain, the nature of the blood stain on the backrest?
It appears to be mostly dry, still some sort of moisture to that blood.
And kind of pooled in 2 areas?
Yes, so in the 2 main areas that I'm thinking of are here as well as down here on the backrest.
Was there blood on the left side of the recliner that seemed to have flowed and dried?
Yes, I don't think this photograph actually shows that on there. But
What is the item on the recliner?
I'm not totally sure as to what that item was. It appeared to be something that looks like an old style candle snuff.
What do we see on State Exhibit 146?
This is a photograph of the wallet that was on the end table next to the recliner.
Did you determine whose wallet this was?
Yes,
Whose was it?
and it was the decedent Ryan Cooper's wallet.
Did it seem to have been moved or touched, or it seemed to be where it was?
It did not seem to have been moved at all from that position.
Was that an interesting observation that you made in light of a non-intruder case?
Yes, if there was something, if this were to be an attempted robbery or theft of items from this property or burglary, I would think that maybe that there would be some sign or showing that something has been moved or taken from that wallet itself. It appears nothing has been moved, or that wallet has not been moved from this photograph.
What do we see on State Exhibit 147?
On this photograph, we're looking at what would be the left side of that recliner, as well as looking towards the little closet area that's in the northeast corner of that living room. And it's also showing the exterior access door to the living room, as well as to that porch landing there. There's also a little bit of a storm door too. You can see that in the photograph as well. And that should be those, as well as the showing the doorknobs and anything else in that area.
So let's talk a bit about that. That's the front living room door that we've talked about, correct?
Correct. That is the living room access door to that porch landing.
Okay. And the recliner, in proximity, how close are they to each other?
I don't know an exact number to give to you, but they would be close to each other upon opening, but they would not contact.
Okay. But fair enough to say, especially when the recliner is in a reclined position, it's very, very close to the door.
If that backrest was completely extended horizontally, it's possible that that door could have hit that recliner when opened.
Did you determine when you got there if the door was locked or not?
Yes, at the time of our examination, that door was indeed locked.
And when you say locked, it's just not closed and shut, but actually locked.
It's locked. We would have to unlock it to open it.
Okay, tell the jury more about State Exhibit 148.
This is just a more vertical view of that same area that was shown in the previous photograph, including the blood that's on the ground, as well as the left side of that recliner with some of the apparent blood stains on the backrest, as well as showing the closet area and also that door that has access to the porch landing area.
Did you make some observations on the pooled blood on the floor?
Yes. Here, there's also, it seems to have pooled in a specific area, but there's also areas that seem to have appeared as if somebody had slipped through it or moved through it at some point to create what you can see at the bottom of that photograph, which would be those voids showing a little bit of the floor there.
Can you just point that out with your pointer to the jury?
Yes. Give me a second here. The poster's just right in the way, but right to the right of my pointer there would be those areas.
149, fair to say that's a different view?
Yes, another view of the south living room area, but we're looking specifically at the southeast corner of the living room area, including some of the blood stain that was seen in the previous photograph. This would be a better view of what was previously mentioned that I observed was these voids in the blood stain here, as well as a photograph of a footprint that was seen here, suggesting that somebody has walked into this blood pool.
Uh, 150.
Just another close-up of the blood stain or blood pool at placard 4.
And at 150, from your angle, are you able to see the blood pooling also on the recliner and dried?
Yes, so that would be in this area right here. It's a little bit difficult because of that recliner being the dark color it is. It's a little harder to see, but there is some dripping of the apparent blood here.
You have some 2 placards, one marked 4 and one marked 5 on State Exhibit 151. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yes, this is just a view of that blood stain that we marked as placard 4, just a general way to designate that area. And then placard 5 is a cartridge casing that we found at the scene.
Can we talk more about that? Can you explain what you found again at placard 5?
Placard 5 was a fired, what appeared to be a .22 long rifle cartridge case.
And that was right by the door.
Correct. It would be right in that little L shape right there is where that cartridge case would be.
Was that something that part of your investigation was looking to see if you can find fired cartridge cases?
Yes. So initial briefing on the details suggested that it possibly had been killed with a firearm of some sort. So with that in mind, there's evidence that could be generated from the firing of a firearm, such as cartridge cases, bullets, and also a firearm itself. So we would necessarily be looking for something like that within the scene.
Now, you testified that there were 2 bullet wounds on Mr. Cooper, and you've said you found 1 cartridge case. Did you find another cartridge case or just 1?
Just 1 right now.
Okay.
At the scene at that time, we just found 1.
Were you ever able to find at the scene another cartridge case?
No.
So from your investigation, you were able to not find the second cartridge case?
We were not able to find the second cartridge case.
Can you talk about State Exhibit 152?
Yes, State's Exhibit 152 is just a photograph of that living room door kind of facing towards the southeast, looking at the doorknob as well as the light switch right next to that door.
But there's something of interest that you observed on the light switch?
Yes, there was also some blood stains up by the light switch itself.
Is 153 just a close-up version of what you've just testified to?
Yes.
And going to, again, (154), 155.
That is just a 2 different views of the cartridge case that was at placard 5.
That's the one you've already testified to. That was a .22 caliber weapon.
It appeared to be a .22 long rifle cartridge case.
What do we see on State Exhibit 156A?
Yes, so with this photograph, this would actually be a close-up of bloodstains that are found on the door jamb side of that exterior living room door. So upon opening that, this would be the edge that would contain the door knob as well as the lock too. This is down towards the floor, the base of that door itself. It was found on this area.
As a crime scene investigator, what does 156A inform you or tell you?
It suggests to me at one time that that door had to be open for blood to get to that area on the door.
So it was opened at one time. That is why there's blood on that part of the door.
Correct.
What do we see on 157?
157 is just looking at the exterior of that living room door, and what is marked as scale 10 or placard 10 or marker 10 is an area of bloodstaining seen on the exterior of that door itself.
Again, 158A, can you tell the jury about that?
Just another close-up view of that marker 10 with the blood staining on the exterior of that door.
And exterior, you mean the side facing outside the house?
Correct.
And what does that tell you when you look at 158A?
Looking at this photograph, it would suggest to me that that door was open far enough that there was blood transferred to that exterior surface of that door at some time. It would suggest that it had been open far enough.
Can you tell us what we're seeing on 159?
That is marked stains on the porch area as well as the steps down towards the dining area.
So when you talk about marked stains, are you saying there's a stain you determined there was a stain on number 6 and number 7, as well as number 8?
Yes, so there'd be a red stain near to those placards. The placards are just helping us to visualize where those stains are at. As far back as I am, I'm showing that where those stains are in relation to each other. But upon the placards themselves just give us perspective at where the approximate position at where they're at.
What do we see on State Exhibit 160?
This is a photograph of that living room access door from the outside, looking at the storm door itself and the piston that's at the base of it, as well as the bottom portion of the living room door.
So you'd have to open the living room door, then also open the storm door to get out of this residence through this door.
Yes, so if you had to exit from the living room, you would have to open that first door and then open that storm door as well.
What do we see on State Exhibit 161?
Just possible bloodstains found on the porch and landing area and the steps.
And that's the front door area that you're talking about.
Correct.
What do we see on State Exhibit 162?
This is a photograph just showing all the items of evidence in relation to each other that are marked at placards 9, 8, 7, and 6. So the bloodstains at placards 6, 7, and 8, as well as the footwear impression on the gate there, and also a Michael Kors clutch or wallet at where the placard 9 is positioned.
And let's talk about that. So looking at placard 9, and if you can point that out for the jury.
Yes, so placard 9 right here.
What do you discover or find there?
Just the contents of the wallet would be consistent with possibly the wife of the decedent, Karina Cooper.
Okay, so there was a Michael Kors wallet with, when you looked inside, you found items that will be consistent with the defendant.
Yes.
And therefore, placard 9, as we see it, is that pretty much a close-up picture of what you've testified to?
Yes, that is a close-up of that clutch or wallet.
Did you find that to be strange where you found this placard, or this wallet?
It appeared to be at some point moved to the outside there. As a person who doesn't carry something like that, I would think that it would be on somebody's person, but it appears to be outside of the residence in a place that would be easily accessed by anybody.
What do we see on State Exhibit 164?
What you're seeing is a photograph of the red stains or the possible blood that was seen outside on the porch landing area, as well as the open gate and the rail that has the footwear impression and blood on it.
And I think we have a close-up of what you've talked as a footwear impression. Can you point that out to the jury on State Exhibit 165?
Yes. The approximate area of that footwear impression stretches from about here to here on the rail.
Are you the one who measured what that footwear impression in State Exhibit 166?
Yes, in State's Exhibit 166, it's not necessarily a measurement.
Okay.
As part of processing a crime scene, depending upon the situation, we might have footwear impressions that are not easily removed from a scene. And so it would require us to take one-to-one photography of those footwear impressions for later analysis. So this photograph, if I'm correct, it might be that one of those photographs that was used to hopefully provide to a footwear impression analyst at the laboratory later on.
So at your lab at DCI, you also have someone who does analysis of footwear impressions.
Correct.
And was this of significance to you as a crime scene investigator?
Yes, it shows that somebody had stepped on there with some sort of footwear that had possible blood from that area on the exterior outside of that residence.
So it seemed that someone had transferred the blood from inside the residence to outside here.
That's what it suggested to me at the time.
Now we are outside. You took a picture of State Exhibit 167.
Yes.
Can you tell us much about 167?
Yes. This is a photograph of a red Ford F-150 pickup truck that was in the driveway just east of the garage on the residence there.
168A is another view of that same picture you testified to.
Yes, just looking from the driver's side at the same pickup truck.
And I'll skip 169. What about 170?
This is a white Chevy Silverado pickup that was also on the property at the time of our scene processing.
So, and this is what you're telling the jury, that you document everything you see at the scene. So sometimes it may have no much relevance to what you're talking about, correct?
Yes, we're documenting everything on the scene with our overall photographs before we start doing any sort of marking of evidence or anything of that nature.
And back to 169, again, that's the license plate to the red pickup truck that was on that property that you took, correct?
Yes, this is the license plate and the number for the red Ford F-150 pickup truck in the driveway.
I'll go past 171. Let's talk about 172.
Yes, this photograph is just an overall of the door to what we defined as the cream-colored shed.
And was it in this condition when you took this picture?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Was the door closed?
It was all closed.
And there was a lock on the door?
Yes.
Do you remember if it was locked or just closed?
I don't remember exactly if it was locked or unlocked, but it was closed at the time.
174?
This would be a photograph of what appears to be a dog kennel on the back side of that cream color shed, which would be the western side of that shed.
So indicated to you that there was a dog in this property?
Yes, at some time they would suggest that they owned a dog to me.
What do we find on 175?
This is one of the outbuildings we defined as the red garage, which was on the which would be northeast of the main residence. This is just looking at the south side of that red garage, looking at the entrances into it.
So it's been admitted into evidence, State Exhibit 3, 310, 311, and 312. We're looking at 311 in the middle. Is that pretty much, based on your testimony, can you just point that out, the red shade that you're talking about?
Yes, so you're speaking specifically on this view?
Yeah.
Okay. This is the 1846 K Avenue trailer, the address here, And this would be the main residence here. And what was portrayed on the screen over here for you would be this building right here.
Did you determine on 176, is that another picture of that building?
Yes, this is another photograph just looking at the southwest corner of that red garage.
There was an entrance door to that building, correct?
Correct.
Was it closed when you got there?
Yes.
What do we see on 177?
This would be a view of the eastern south door on that red garage.
And when I zoom in on 177, are you able to see that better?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you say,
May I approach briefly?
Yeah, you may. All right, Mr. Kodiaga, you may pick up where you left off.
zoomed in on 177, do you see, again, a door lock or an electronic keypad to lock the door?
Yes, I do.
Would you say that this family appeared to be a safety-conscious family?
Objection, speculation.
Sustained.
What did you make with the observations of the key locks on the doors?
That anytime there was a door that had a keypad lock, it required a code and or a key. I don't know exactly the full method of unlocking those, but is very clear that there was multiple means by which of securing the things that are inside those buildings.
You've investigated various crime scenes in your career. In rural Iowa trail, do you see a lot of that kind of electronic keypads on farmhouses and farm doors?
It's really on a case-by-case basis. I can't say that that's a general pattern that is observed within the demographics of most of Iowa, but I would generally believe that most Iowans would like to secure their outbuildings in some way, whether it be deadbolt locks or multiple locks. However, I've seen various means of doing that.
178, again, just another documentation of the electronic key lock on the door.
Yes, just another photograph of that same door that was shown in the previous photograph, just a little bit closer to that lock.
What do we see on 179, State Exhibit?
This is a photograph looking in through the open western south door of the red garage, looking into where there was a salon.
Okay. Were you able to go inside what you described as a salon?
Yes, we were able to go in and search.
Did you observe if anything had been disturbed inside this salon, anything had been taken, or did things seem to be intact?
It appeared that there hadn't been really anything that had occurred within the salon area that would suggest that something had happened there.
And when you looked at all these doors that you've testified to so far, did they appear to be an intruder or a non-intruder trying to break into any of these doors?
No, these doors that I looked at, there didn't appear to be any signs of forced entry or an attempt to break through those barriers.
Again, 181 will just be more pictures of inside the salon.
Yes, just another photograph of inside the salon looking towards the northeast corner where there's another access to another area for the salon.
Okay. And that will be consistent also with 182.
Yeah, this is just another view of that salon area, just looking at the south wall near that door.
Again, nothing appeared to have been disturbed or taken.
Nothing did appear to be disturbed or taken.
What do we see on State Exhibit 183?
This is a photograph from inside of the garage area from the north wall facing towards the south. What you can see up on screen is a Shields Outfitter gun safe, and then also the door to the bathroom within that red garage.
So there is a gun safe inside there.
Yeah, yes, there is a safe here. I would call it a gun safe. That's what it looks like to me, being a firearms person.
184, is that a just close-up of what you've testified to?
Yes,
And to get into this gun safe, you had to have some codes to access it, correct?
that is correct.
Were you able to open the gun safe, and is that what we see in Exhibit 185?
Yes, the code was obtained and they were able to open that safe.
Were you able to find firearms in State Exhibit 185?
Yes,
So did that tell you that people who lived here probably used firearms or were exposed to firearms?
yes.
What do we see on 186?
This is a photograph of what we defined as the gray garage, looking towards the northeast corner of that gray garage.
Were you able to find, back to the firearms that you obtained from this gun safe, were you able to determine what kind of firearms they were and document them?
There was a couple firearms, but the one that I'm specifically remembering right now is the Savage Arms Rascal that is chambered for 22 short, long, and long rifle. It was a bolt action rifle.
Okay. So there was a Savage 22 bolt action rifle inside this.
Yes, Savage Rascal, or Savage Arms Rascal, bolt action rifle.
Were there ammunitions also found around these firearms?
Yes.
You don't remember the other firearms that you found?
I can't off the top of my head remember exactly what other firearms were in that safe.
You talked about Exhibit 186. Let's talk about 187. What do we see?
187 is just another view of that gray garage, and it's looking at the southeast corner of that gray garage, showing the door that is the south door access into that garage. And there you can also see a little bit of the garage door itself on the right side of that photograph. There's also a window on just a further west of that south door.
Everything appeared closed or locked.
Yes.
What do you see on 188?
This is a photograph of that second room in the salon area in the red garage. This would be facing towards the west end of that room itself. So the initial entrance into the salon, the access that was shown in the previous photographs, this is the room that was adjacent to that.
What do we see on State Exhibit 189?
This is just a overall view of the interior of the gray garage and what was in there, including the recreational vehicles like the snowmobile and the Polaris side-by-side, as well as a Ford F-450 pickup truck.
Again, none of these, any of these appear to have been touched or moved or someone trying to steal in them?
No, there did not appear to be anything to have moved them or disturbed this garage or the items therein.
Okay, same to 190 is pretty much what you've talked about.
Yes, it's just looking at the same pickup truck as well as the snow machines there, and it's just facing towards the west end of that garage.
Let's go back to 191. What do we see on 191?
This would be a photograph of the marked stain that was found on the steering wheel of the red F-150 pickup truck. This is marked as stain or marked as number 11. This was collected by the crime scene team.
When we say collected, was there a swab or a DNA swab done on this?
There was a swab taken of this stain here.
Okay. And so you go back, so you swab taken away to determine what exactly that stain would be, correct?
I would collect those, and then they would be taken back to the laboratory where there would be further analysis on them by those that have the expertise on these.
So this will be the red pickup that was on the driveway,
This, yes, from the red F-150 pickup truck.
the one that you took a picture of the plates.
Correct, with the license plate Farm IH.
And we are back to the residence. Can you tell us what we are seeing on 192?
Yes, this is just a photograph of the Michael Kors wallet or clutch, and also the wallet from the end table in the living room. This is actually inside of the kitchen on their dining room table where we have placed those to be photographed.
Okay, so you've moved them from where they were originally found, and now you've put them inside the kitchen to photograph them and to look into the contents inside them.
After I have taken overall photographs and have taken my Faro scans of the scene, after that has all been done and documented as in the place that they were at, we are then able to move those and look at them. And that's what we did in this case. This would be after all that initial documentation of where those items would be in this scene.
Again, 193 just is a picture of Mr. Cooper, Rand Cooper, just showing that that billfold belongs to him.
Yes, that's just a photograph of his driver's license from that wallet.
There were cards in that wallet, there were credit cards and other documentation that appeared to be intact.
Yes, everything seemed to be intact with that wallet.
Again, what do we see on State Exhibit 302?
This is just a photograph of the same wallet that was found from the end table, as well as the wallet or clutch from placard 9 that was found outside of the residence. And there on the table are the contents of the Michael Kors wallet on the table itself.
You may.
So you talked about the firearms you found and ammunition that you found. As part of your documentation and preparation for testimony, do you also write a report for the lab and for future uses, like for courtroom today?
Yes.
And will that report have a clear narrative of the type of firearms that you found and the ammunition that you found?
Yes, the items that we did collect from that scene.
If I was to give you a copy of your report to look at, would it refresh your memory so that it can help the jury understand your testimony on the firearms and the ammunition that you found?
Yes.
While he's doing that, are we done with Exhibit 302 for right now? Are we done with the video exhibits at this point? Ladies and gentlemen, while they're talking for a minute, why don't we just, I've been sitting a long time. Feel free to stand up and stretch. Anybody out there, feel free to stretch for a minute. All right, everybody can have a seat. Mr. Kodiaga, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. So, were you able to look at your report?
Yes.
Was it able to refresh your recollection on the nature of the other firearms and the ammunition that you found?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what those were?
Yes, it was a Savage Arms Rascal chambered for 22 short, long, or long rifle. It was a bolt-action rifle. And there was also ammunition found within that gun safe that was an unopened box that did not appear to have any missing cartridges of Winchester Super X 22 long rifle.
Okay. So Winchester Super X size 22.
Yes, the brands would be Winchester Super X cartridges,
Yeah.
chambered for, or manufactured for 22 long rifle.
I have no further questions for this witness at this time. Thank you.
Ms. Watt, cross-examination?
Thank you. I guess, is there some suggestion that the bullets that killed Ryan Cooper came from that gun safe?
At the time of the details of the case and seeing what I had observed at the scene, I would be looking for some sort of firearm. And based upon the cartridge case, would suggest to me that it'd be something kind of like a 22 long rifle. So at this point in time, I directed my search to be looking for firearms specifically chambered for that type of cartridge, as well as based upon the size of the wounds that I had seen, and also a firearm that would be able to fire those types of cartridges.
Okay, so you're just looking for a gun that is consistent with that shell casing that you found?
Yes, on scene that would be consistent with having fired that type or that size cartridge.
Okay. The ammo that you found, though, that's consistent with that cartridge, that box was unopened?
Correct.
Within this house, we saw some pictures. Did it look like they had been doing some remodeling? Specifically, if you remember, there's a light switch, but there's no cover on the light switch.
I don't specifically remember that one off the top of my head, but yes, there seemed to be different projects occurring within that house. Yes.
I think even in the living room, there's no actual floor, right? It's just looks like.
What's what would look like subflooring there?
We looked at State's Exhibit 143, which showed a footprint, a bloody footprint. Did you do anything to determine whose foot that was?
I did not.
Are you able to, in any way, with your experience, time when that footprint got there?
No.
I'm assuming that when emergency personnel are trying to take Ryan from the chair to the ground, it's possible the recliner gets moved. Is that fair?
Yeah, depending on what they needed to do to be able to remove him from the chair to the position that he was at, it's possible that they had to move the backrest or move the chair in some sense.
Okay. So you do not know whether the way that we see the recliner in your photos, if that's the way it was during the shooting, for example?
That is correct. That is just the way I found it when I was actually processing the scene.
Okay. This front door that leads to the living room, you testified that it was locked. Is it just the doorknob lock?
Yes, it's only that the lock is only on that doorknob. There was no deadbolt to that
Okay.
door.
So there's no deadbolt, there's no keypad on that door.
On that door.
So the way these doorknob locks work, doesn't that mean you can exit from the inside to the outside without having to unlock it then?
I don't know for sure how the mechanism worked on that one particularly, but I don't know if it needed to be manually turned or you could just turn the doorknob. But I do know from the outside you would need a key, and then you'd also have to have access some way in that way.
Okay. Well, commonly, if you've had these types of doorknobs, are you able to leave without unlocking it from the inside?
You would have to unlock it no matter what, whether it's the automatic doorknob turn or the turning of that latch itself.
Okay, so, but you would be able to, I don't know if we're saying the same thing, two different ways. You would be able to just turn the handle and leave without, without like...
But that's what, yes, so what I'm saying is that could be other ways of unlocking that.
Okay.
Some doorknobs are constructed that if you were to turn that knob, it might automatically unlock from the inside.
Okay.
Or you actually have to put your fingers on the latch itself and turn it.
I
I
understand.
don't know, I can't remember exactly on that doorknob which it was.
Okay, I understand now. And didn't you also seize that doorknob?
At the time of our scene collection, we did not seize that doorknob.
Okay. Do you know if anybody sees the doorknob associated with law enforcement?
I think after the scene had been processed and after we had collected our evidence at a further date that their doorknob might have been submitted to laboratory. I can't recall exactly when, but I believe that it might have been taken by law enforcement, but I can't say for certain without looking back at records.
Okay. Do you have anything to do with what gets submitted for DNA testing?
In general, as we've collected items of evidence, we will discuss with the case agent sometimes what analysis they would request of certain items of evidence.
Okay. So do you know what items were DNA tested in this case then?
I don't know exactly which ones. That would all depend upon the DNA section choosing themselves. Mm-hmm. What we collected is what we felt was important to that scene. Then it's on the DNA section of the criminalist assigned to further work with agents in discussing what items really truly need analyzed or not.
Okay. And then who on scene is responsible for collecting fingerprints?
That would be part of the crime scene team's responsibility.
So you?
Yes.
All right. And did anybody then dust this doorknob or attempt to dust this door or the storm door for fingerprints?
We did not.
Okay. I mean, because presumably, of course, Karina Cooper, we're going to expect to see her DNA or fingerprints at this place, right? She lives there?
Yes. So as part of that, there are people that live in the residence that we would expect to have DNA or left friction ridge details like that upon the premises.
Okay. But we would not necessarily expect somebody's DNA or fingerprints to be on it if they didn't live there. Again,
It depends. Like if another person, an unknown person, has been there, they could have left something like that.
Okay. And in this case, to be clear, then we do not have any, at least as far as you're aware, we don't have any DNA testing of that doorknob, the door handle, no fingerprints of the doorknob, the storm door handle.
As far as what pertains to the scene, we did not do any dusting for friction ridge details.
Okay.
As to whether or not later on down the road, somebody else in the laboratory that I work at analyzed those items of evidence for those things, I do not recall. I can't say that they haven't been analyzed.
Okay. I'm wondering also about the footwear impression that's on, I don't know what it is, a baby gate or something that's on the stairs outside?
Yes.
Okay. Didn't you, as part of your investigation, collect a bunch of shoes from the residents as well to try to compare?
There was only one shoe or a pair of shoes that was collected, but that was collected by Tama County Sheriff's Office.
Okay. So do you know whether any of the shoes in this house match that footwear impression?
There was an initial look at most of the footwear in the premises, and none of them appeared to have the same pattern except those muck boots that were seen by Tama County Sheriff's Office and collected.
Do you have any idea what that pattern, what shoe you might associate it with?
I do not.
Okay. Have you tried to compare it to, are you familiar with the shoes Vans, the brand Vans shoes?
Yes.
Okay, are you familiar with the tread on those shoes?
Having a pair myself, yes.
Okay. Do you know whether those are consistent with the pattern that we're seeing on this baby gate looking thing?
I'm not for sure. I haven't really looked that closely at them.
Okay. Do you have any answer or expertise as to how that's the only part of a footprint that we see is what's on that bit of baby gate?
I am not for sure on how that transfers or able to explain that totally. I don't know if it's I can't say for certain on anything regarding that. I wouldn't be able to explain how the blood only gets on that railing versus the cement steps nearby. I just noticed and observed that that was what was on the railing at the time, and made sure to document and preserve that evidence as best I can.
We saw in a picture, and we talked about placard number 5, which was the shell casing found near the front door leading into the living room, right?
Correct.
Okay. So what I'm taking you to say is that it was kind of just sitting in front of the door, the shell casing?
Yes.
Okay.
Right where that, if you look at that photo, where that little L measurement or that ruler is on that placard, it would be right within that L area.
So was it hard to see?
No, it was not hard to see, especially if we have other lighting in there. It's brass. It does reflect.
And then I noticed also in that picture that where the placard 5 and the shell casing is found, there is that, I don't know what that's called either, the air conditioning.
Oh, the vent.
The vent, thank you. So that was near the other shell casing. Could a second shell casing fall into that vent?
I don't know for certain. I didn't measure the slots in that vent, but knowing that 22 long rifle cartridge cases are small, it could be possible that maybe it was on the vent. Maybe it could have slipped through. I didn't really do anything to see if that was possible, but it could be depending upon the size of that vent.
Okay. And I'm assuming you didn't go into the ductwork to look for the shell casing?
Well, we did not.
Okay.
We just looked down that vent.
Okay. I guess I was also wondering, did anybody move the recliner to see if the other shell casing was under the recliner?
We did.
You did do that, okay.
We also moved the living room couch around too to make sure that it hadn't bounced in any other sort of direction.
Did you note whether or not the storm door had a lock, like leading into the living room?
I do not remember
Okay.
seeing that.
We talked a lot about keypads and securing things. Is it fair to say that if you have a keypad, you also don't need to remember to bring a key to get into your house?
Again, I don't know the function of those locks per se. I would think, personally, that those keypads, all you needed was the code. But I don't know specifically the function of those ones there on scene. I did not try to test it out or had a key available to even test that.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Thank you, sir.
Any redirect, Mr. Codiaga?
Yes, you talked about some shoes being picked by the Tama County Sheriff's Office for further comparison, correct?
Those were just collected by them. I don't know if they were submitted later or not.
Okay. And when they ask you about whether it was visible to see this size 22 cartridge, when you are doing this examination, it's in the middle of the day, correct?
Yes, it would be starting in the afternoon, correct, from noon on till late at night, around a little past 10 o'clock.
But from what the jury sees from your pictures, the sun was out, it was bright outside, correct?
Correct, and most of them, yes. And some of those were later on when it was actually, the sun was setting too.
But as by the time you take these in the house, you're working slowly, methodically. It's different from a situation where maybe the room is darker and the source of light is not as good as at the time that you are operating, correct?
Correct. So the time that that was observed, I would say, was not when the sun was setting. It was during the initial overall photography, which would have been in the afternoon, sometime past noon.
So with different conditions, it can be different. It can be easy to miss that cartridge.
Depending on the situation, yes.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Any recross?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. You may step down. And ladies and gentlemen, the timing worked out pretty well. We're right at about 10:30, so we'll take our morning, mid-morning break at this point, so approximately 15 minutes, and would remind you again of that admonition that I've given you previously. So we'll see you shortly.